we talked about is that the requirements for the low 300 schools have to do with our 3-year average of reading scores. And we were at the top of that low 300, but because of that, we are required to have that extra hour every day. The additional hour expectations are that it has to be outside of the 120 block. It can't be inside it and it can't be next to it. It has to be 60 minutes uninterrupted. And the district does require us for groups, for small groups. If you have to do a different setup, just please see me, let me know, so we'll make sure that you have what you need. During this time, what you're teaching needs to be research-based, and it's differentiated instruction. So you're using your student data. How did they do on their formative assessments, their STAR assessments, whatever data you have to meet their needs. During this time, you should be addressing the different areas of reading, like phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocab, and comprehension. This is what the kids are actually doing, what you're providing them: time for guided practice, error analysis or correction, feedback on what they've done, especially like if you're doing a writing prompt, you want them to see, like, talk about where they're going and how to improve. And we really have a big push to integrate social studies, science, math text. So you can use that like through Scholastic News. You guys all have access to that. The science leveled readers, if you have social studies leveled readers, those are all good options to do that. And they can also be writing in response to reading. So when you look at Power Hour and what it is and what it isn't, it is providing additional foundational support, specific rotations, small group instruction. It's based on their skills. You can have flexible groups, and you can include your Tier 3 instruction during this time and monitoring. And if you've met with Sarah for MTSS, she's kind of gone over that. What it's not homework. They're not doing spelling tests or like spelling lists. We're not finishing items from the 120 block. They're not doing handwriting, although if they're doing a phonics lesson, you can expect them to, use the correct formation for their letters as well, but we're not doing like handwriting sheets. It's never whole group instruction. It's not for makeup work or assessments. Their additional time would happen during ELA block. And it's also not AR time. The caveat to that is if they are in a group reading a book, like a guided reading book from me, or they're doing a literature circle, they can eventually take the AR test on those, but not during Power Hour. So they could be reading something in a group, and once they finish, take the AR test during the 120 block, but not during Power Hour. All right, so next, looking at resources. What resources can you use? So I had shared this, that in Schoology, there's a grade level group, and in the grade level group, you go to resources, English Language Arts, since that Power Hour falls under. You go to yearly overview, and then there's a folder called small group and Power Hours. I'm actually gonna go there right now to my, so in Schoology, I'm gonna go back to the 3rd grade group, and all the groups are kind of set up the same way. So you go down to resources, English Language Arts, and then this top folder, yearly overview. So what's nice in here is that a lot of them do have some with the STEM scopes reading. So going through here, so this one actually has 2 different ones for classifying matter. So this is 2 different texts on classifying matter from STEM scopes. And then this would be the actual work that the students would do. So this is actually tied to 3rd grade standards. So here's their task, and this is going to be like a multi-day like task set. So I don't expect them to have this done in one day. And if it's Power Hour and they're only working on it every other day, it may take a little while, and that's okay. So after reading the first text with a partner, they're gonna answer these questions. What does that first paragraph add? What's the relationship? What do the images add? Then they're matching definitions from the text. Then they're doing a map from the text. What's the structure? A note-taking guide on the other. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to read and write about these science texts, finding pronouns, putting events in order. It also exposes them to FSA style questions. So they can do something like this during Power Hour, and these ones are already created by the district, so I would definitely use those. If I go back to that yearly overview folder, there is one called Small Groups and Power Hour. When you click in here, the approved Power Hour resources list is here. I would go ahead and print a copy of this for yourself if you want. It will again list the statute, and then it shows you depending on what subject you're working or looking for. So if I'm looking for something on phonics, these are some ideas. I can use these Reading Wonder Tier 2 lessons. We can use the Empowering Teachers lessons, and those are in Schoology. FCRR resources, so you can search that, fcrr.org. Lessons from WonderWorks, Smarty Ants lessons, making words, and Words Their Way, we have for vocab too. Wiley Blevins phonics, and some of those are right in Schoology in the lower grades. Just kind of letting you see a lot of different options. So these are approved. So if you use these, you don't need approval, you don't need to ask. We mentioned the text, mathematical text. I have some for 3rd, 4th, and 5th if you don't have those. They're a little bit higher level, but they can be used. Social studies and science leveled readers are also okay to use. Literature circles, LLI, some of the grades are doing LLI, or your kids are getting pulled. That is approved additional resources. So this is a great quick reference guide. If I go back to Schoology, there are folders for each area of the reading skills. So if I needed something on vocabulary, if I click in here, well, that one doesn't have, I'll go to phonics. So phonics has some explicit phonics instruction, but say I need digraphs and blends, and I think they're somewhat by grade level too, but say I need help with L blends. Some of my kids in 1st grade aren't getting that. So it will give you a resource for L blends. So this is actually based on Wiley Blevins. So these are the cards they would use. Then they build these words with L blends, and then they sort the words. And then there's a sorting chart. This would be something they could draw on their notebook too. You don't have to print this for everybody. And then there's text with L blends. So it kind of gives you the directions on this last page about what you could do with that. So this could be teacher-led at first, and then it could be something you could release, or if it's something they just need practice on, it could be something that the kids work on their own in their group. I'm going to go back to that small group and Power Hour folder. If you scroll down a little further, there's this one called Reading Wonder Teacher Resource Books. These can be used during Power Hour because they are not used during the 120 block. But if I'm in 2nd grade looking for a specific skill, there are nice little passages that you can use. So I'll show you the table of contents for this book. So what's included in here would be decodable passages, sorting, spelling word cards, games, all of these things are kind of in here. So it depends on what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for long A and I go to page 24, which when I put it in down here, it'll be a little different. Okay, so this is long I. So there's a passage with long I, and it gives an activity, and that's probably not enough. We want them to do something else with it. But if you've done a lesson with them on short I, then you want them to read an actual text and find long I words in context, this is an option to use. So maybe they read this passage and they have to find short I and long I words and make a tree map of each side. That could be an option. And then maybe they have to come up with some more of their own words, that kind of thing. I'm going to scroll and see if I can get to the other. You guys can always look through these as well. So these are word sorts that you can use. So this one looks like it's a focus on short O versus long O. So they would sort the words, and then they can make their own word cards too for some other words that fit for that. And I think it usually says it at the bottom, this kind of goes along with Unit 2, Week 1. So if you want some continued practice, say last week was Unit 2, Week 1, and they struggled, I might use this next week during Power Hour to reinforce that sound or skill with the students. Okay, so those are the teacher resource books there. Also in here are the Empowering Teacher lessons. These are nice because they actually have the routines for you in here. So say we're looking for something for vocabulary, and maybe ESOL because they're having trouble, or some of your ESE students that may not have that vocabulary base. There's different things in here. Here's one on base words and affixes. So this is actually your teacher-led lesson. So you could just have this copy up, and there usually is something for the students to do, but it tells you what the teacher can do, what the teacher says, what the students do or say is underlined. So we're going to do prefixes, base words, suffixes, and it goes through what you would say and the cards you would show them, how you model the task. So especially if like doing these type of things isn't familiar to you, I would definitely pull some of these once you like know what your kids need. Trying to scroll through it. So the students would practice the task. Here's an independent practice link. I think these empowering teacher lessons all have a link to an FCRR game. And then there's usually something. So like, look, the prefixes and suffixes are right here with their definitions. So that's something to help you in teaching the lesson. So those are really nice too. One other place I'd like to show you a resource is in our SharePoint site. So in SharePoint, sure that I'm sharing that. Yes, I am. So in SharePoint, once you're logged into your Sandhill one, and this is always the 4th tab that comes up when you open Chrome. If you scroll all the way down to resources and then click on ELA, and then in that ELA folder, I have just a general Power Hour resources for you. And the book that we kind of mentioned that I wanted to show you was the Reading Wonders Tier Intervention books. So these can also be used during Power Hour. Some of these would be teacher-led, some may be something you can transition to students on their own. But say I'm teaching 3rd grade and we need some help with phonics or word study. So if I pull this book up, and please don't print these because some of them are around like 200 pages or so. But same thing, they have like a table of contents. But depending on what you need, short vowels, long vowels, words with final E. Remember, this is a 3rd through 6th grade book. So some of these are things that they're struggling with. So if I just go to one of them, let's see, I'll just pick a page here, see what we get. We're gonna go a little further. So these have like a lesson for you. So this is categorizing sounds and then rhyme. These are kind of just lessons on those things. Kind of find one that has like the student activity page too. So this would be like short A, reading short A, and like a passage. Now they have to write some words with short A, and you could even extend that. Then short E, it gives you the lesson, blending, how to practice it. And then scrolling down, there should be like a student like work page too. And you know, depending on the grade level, all of your kids don't need this, but you know, knowing where your kids are in different levels, that makes a difference. So, but those are in the SharePoint site. So coming back here, there was this link in Moodle. I think it's still in Schoology, but I'm not sure. So if you're K1 or 2 and you're looking for it, let me know. We'll dig. But it gave you like the sequence of which sounds. And then when we talked about writing activities, these are some different things that you could do during Power Hour time, like types of sentences, like putting 2 sentences, simple ones together, making a compound sentence. Punctuation, we don't want to just do like worksheets of punctuation though. We want to have actual like embedded practice in context. We want them to find it out and then like correct it, that kind of thing. Same goes for parts of speech. You can have like a little game on nouns, but then we want them to read something where they identify nouns. Kind of come back. I think that picks up what I missed on the beginning of the video. So hopefully that helped. And if you have questions about Power Hour resources or what that might look like or how your group should be set up, just please let me know. Thank you.
Or find text evidence, something like that.
Thank you, Rutledge, for sharing. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but she can handle it too, right? All right, so some other ideas, what resources can I use? I kind of showed you that list. This is that list I showed you in Schoology, something like this, but visually leveled readers from my office, because you can be doing guided reading. If you are in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we have the Florida Ready books. They're like iReady. You can do those in your teacher-led group, and they're just another way to teach the focus standard that you've been working on. You can use items from the grammar handbook because that is not necessarily what we're using for our whole group instruction. And you can use the review skills from Reading Wonders, these blue pages, but that's more teacher led. You can obviously use Smarty Ants and iStation, and now that we do have access to technology, hopefully that is helping your kids stay a little bit engaged on that day. WonderWorks is okay, but most people that's ESE, most of them are using it during whole group.
Is the grammar handbook in Reading Wonders?
Yes, it's the green pages in Reading Wonders, I believe.
Okay.
Like if you go in there. And then these Reading Wonder Tier 2 resources, I'm gonna show you where those are saved for us right now, because that is another good resource. So let me do one more new share to here. Of course, I can't get to my SharePoint. So this, you guys are seeing SharePoint now? So on SharePoint, if you scroll all the way down, and SharePoint is always the 4th tab that opens for you when you open Chrome. You have to log in. But if you scroll all the way down to this resources section and ELA, and I'm sorry, it hasn't been renamed, but we were having trouble with it. But if you click here in ELA, I have a folder called Power Hour Resources, and some of them are the same things you've seen. But what's not in there are these Reading Wonder tier intervention books. These are also PDF books that you can download, and you'll see there's some for 3-6 and there's some for K2. So if I wanted to do K6 fluency intervention, I click on the book, you can, like I said, download it to your computer. And it's a big book, so it's long. I would not print any of these because they're hundreds of pages. This one is 240, so you don't want to print the whole thing. But if you're looking for a specific, it's really tiny, specific type of lesson or something for the kids, see if I can pull this down. So we're looking on like high frequency word drills, or because we're looking for fluency, speed drills with short U words, we can go to those pages, which I don't know where this is going to land me. The pages are always off. So this one's a lesson about open and closed syllables, different types of syllables. It just depends on what you're working on with your kids. Oh, it went to page 240, went to the end, sorry. So here's decoding. So if you needed to check and see how many short vowel sounds or whatever they could read. I'm not a big fan of nonsense words. We used to do that, but I would kind of stay away from that. But this one is like if you've worked on soft C and G and you want to see how many of those words they can read correctly, it just gives you some prompts and stuff that you guys can use. And there are also lessons. This one isn't the best sample of that, but those are in Schoology. Or I'm sorry, those are on SharePoint. Let me talk correctly. So the only thing we didn't get to really was documenting. I'll just briefly show this. You guys have seen, this is kind of the lesson plan format where you put in, and it does not have to be like super detailed. If you need it to be, that's fine. But as long as we know what each group is doing, one thing to know that if a group meets with you, like say group 1 and 2 meet with you on Monday, then their second center should be an independent, like station. I'm sorry, I should call them stations. And then if they're on a computer, their second station should be independent. We don't really, unless you only have like 5 kids in your room, we don't really want them going from you to computer and then the next day doing 2 independent, because an hour of just independent work doesn't tend to work for a lot of kids. So we want them to either have you or the computer and an independent, and then the next day the opposite and an independent. That's kind of what this schedule shows. For tracking, now this one has them tracked like every day. You don't need to track them every day, just once during the week on whatever they're working on. So this group 1 and Monica, whatever, they're working on open syllables. So how many did they get correctly out of 5? You just need to have that like once a week to show what they're working on. Okay, and that's where it's really similar to MTSS, that you're tracking where the groups are. Okay. Oops, I have a chat. Did I miss something in the chat? Label 5th grade. Okay, sorry, I'll deal with that. All right, any other questions? I might stop sharing this since I know it's about time for you guys to go. What questions? Did I give you more options? What are you guys thinking? Yes? those things are there. I know it takes a minute to kind of pull it together. I have shared with some people, try to keep your power hour to like, think about it as a whole week. So you don't have to change the activities every day. They can repeat the same type of thing. We always want to tie games to text though. Like if you're doing a game on antonyms, like 4th and 5th grade, they focus on that a lot. We then want them to also read something and find some words and find antonyms. We don't want it to be half an hour of just playing a game because they lose interest. So if you can kind of pair it with something that they can read, that's a really good option for them. All right, we have 2 minutes for questions. Thoughts? Go ahead.
Do we still have to take attendance even though we're keeping the same kids? Because last time we had to take attendance because we had all different kids.
For attendance, all you need to mark on the bottom of that sheet is just who was in your teacher-led group that day.
Okay.
Just mark your teacher-led. I don't care. I mean, that's all. That's all they want to know, that bottom part, because the teacher-led one, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, that is the most important one. You pulling your small group and the one in front of you, that's where we need the best instruction. So if you're struggling, I would rather have you get your guided reading group, and I've got lots of books with lesson plans already attached. Come see me, I'll help you with that. Get that group down. We can work on the other ones. We can get the other ones there, and I think I've shared a lot of resources, but really focus on that teacher-led group, most important. Same thing if you're an ELA teacher during the 120 block, during centers, teacher-led is most important, most powerful for the kids. And they want to be there with you. They love to be with just you and like 2 other kids or 3 other kids. They think it's great. Any other questions? Erickson, I'll send you some information after we're done. Okay. All right. Well, if you're good, have a great work day. Friday. Enjoy. Thank you for being here. I'll see you guys later.